There's nothing I love more than some good fall shrub juggling. That's what we're doing again here. As we've talked about before, you guys, fall is a great time for planting shrubs and trees and perennials. The idea behind that is that the soil is warm, but the days are cool, the sun isn't quite as intense, so the plant isn't really asked to do much except put those roots down. It's really good for it. So this one is a lilac, but let me tell you about why I'm holding this guy. So I'm partnering with Bloomables on this video, and Bloomables is a little bit different from other plant collections. What they do is, instead of having a whole bunch of different varieties of essentially the same plant, they really narrow it down to the best of each in each category, so that you know you're pretty much going to end up with really good plants. So there's not, you know, thousands of plants. What there are is really reliable plants that are going to do really well, but more than that, that all work together, or most of them work together. So the other thing with Bloomables is they also offer some great suggestions and some inspiration for how to combine these plants, which is a really great starting point, because sometimes if you're looking at a blank slate, you just can't figure out how that would all work together. So they have some really great renderings of some ideas of how to put these together. And of course, if there's, you know, they've got many roses in the collection, easy care roses in the collection. So if there's a rose that you really love, you can just swap it out for one that's in their collection. It's not a rule. You can just get inspiration from it. But the idea is that they show you how to combine these things. Now, of course, you don't have to plant them as groups, and actually that's what I'm doing today. I have 3 really cool shrubs to show you today, all of which are just going to be sort of steadfast performers. Especially with shrubs, for me, it's kind of a big deal that shrubs sort of deal with themselves for the most part, because that's why they're a shrub, right? That's why we love a shrub, because it's mostly hands-off, right? So just a quick rundown on the plants that I'm going to be working with today, all of which would work so well together in a group, but also will work alone with other plants that you might have, and that's how I'm going to be using them. So the first is New Age White Lilac, which is obviously a beautiful white lilac with great scent, and that's kind of a big deal to me, the scent part. Then we have a Cran Razz buddleia, which is kind of a, Cran Razz is a great name for it, by the way. It's a deep pink, not quite magenta flower on it. And then we have this Northern Lights spirea, and this has a lot of things going for it, including a really pretty pink flower, which now imagine in your head you've got the white lilac, you've got the Cran Razz buddleia, and then you've got the pink spirea. Make a nice little grouping together. You get some good texture in there with the bigger leaves of the lilac. You get the, you know, longer skinny flowers of the buddleia, and then you get a semi-mounding habit with the spirea. And by the way, the other thing with the spirea is that the new growth on it is red, which is, you know, just beautiful. So this New Age White Lilac is going basically at the end of the road, where I feel like I love seeing lilacs. I'm setting it in this garden a little bit, and it's actually going down a little bit. So it won't get enormous right here. Height-wise, this is going to end up being 5 by 5 in about 5 years. And this is hardy in zone 4 to 7. So the really important thing with this lilac is that it is mildew resistant, and that's really important. I think if you're picking a lilac right now for your garden, look for one that's mildew resistant, because if you know anything about lilacs, you know that they can start looking absolutely terrible pretty early in the season. And the whole idea of this is that we want this to look good at least 3 seasons. And this should do this because it's got this beautiful foliage on it. And that foliage should stay clean because, again, this is mildew resistant here. Okay, so this is Empire Northern Lights spirea, and I'm going to put it over here on the house side of our little creek. Behind me is one of the new gardens I did this year, and over here is the garden I worked on with Roy Diblick. So I find myself using this pathway more than any other way to get to the other side of our property, because I love walking through these new areas. So I love the idea of having this entrance to these areas to be interesting, but again, low maintenance. Now, if you are sort of have written off spirea, you need to rethink that, because spireas have gotten so much better than the old days. So this one gets 3 to 4 feet tall and wide, hardy from zone 4 to 9, so really broad hardiness range. Like I said, the new foliage comes out red and then it turns kind of light green, and this is kind of a mid green that it would fade to later on. Pink flowers that will repeat bloom on this one. So all of these things that I've just talked about, the changing color of the foliage, the repeat bloom, these are all things that were unheard of ages ago when we all sort of started looking at spirea thinking, I don't really want that. But the best thing about spirea, in my opinion, is that they are very low maintenance. They are generally deer resistant. I usually spray them because I feel like deer will nip at them a little bit. They don't eat them to the ground, they just nip. Now that might not be a bad thing necessarily, because what will happen is if a deer does come along and nip this, the new growth will come out that red. And so you'll sacrifice some buds because they will have eaten the flowers, but you'll still have the beautiful red foliage on this, which still will make this beautiful all year long. So now full sun on these, although I mean, that's officially it, you can push it to part sun. And I'm gonna put this over here, which is full sun. It's kind of a cloudy day, but this is full sun in summer. Once we get to fall, I'm gonna say we're definitely into part sun on this, but it will be perfect here in this spot. Fill this in. I've got a few little chives right along this path, which were leftovers from the chive hedge at one point, but I kind of like them there, and I feel like they help keep the critters out of this area maybe a little bit, or maybe I'm just imagining that. Anyway, really easy to plant this guy. Water till it's established is all you have to do with this. So water it for the first year, and certainly when you're planting in fall, remember, just keep watering through that first frost, right up until the hard freeze, once a week. That's all you need to do. And then water it next year, because it's still going to be getting established next year. But you probably don't even have to water it the entire next year unless you're in a drought situation. Maybe halfway through the year, and then you can probably let up on the watering, and it should take care of itself in most areas. So I only firm in shrubs with my hands. If you've ever seen people like stomp with their feet, you don't need to do that. Just make sure that you're filling in the gaps really well around the plant with your hands to get that soil in there. You don't have to push really hard. And then you water it really well, which is what we'll do next. Water it in really well, and then check to make sure that no pockets have formed or that the roots haven't gotten exposed during that process. And then fill in some more, and then mulch around your new plants, because that will really help keep that moisture in, which is really important for these plants that are fall planted, to do your best to keep that moisture at that root zone. Okay, now for our third plant, we have to take a little field trip. Well, different camera angle and different spot to do the last of these shrubs. And this is a butterfly bush called Cran Razz, and it is kind of a perfect size. It's about 4 to 5 feet tall and wide, not too big, not too small. I think down here it'll end up being more like 4 feet, but we're at a garden that you've not seen me work in before, and it's perfect for this garden. So let me just show you around here. So I'm filming on my phone because I got down here with all my stuff and all my batteries are dead in the other camera. So the phone will work for this, but if you are familiar with southeastern Wisconsin or this part of it, you will recognize this spot immediately. This is a garden at the bottom of a very big hill with a very big church on it that is maintained by our master gardener group. Planted, maintained, and we use it as education for people walking by. We try to, share photos of it and, answer questions from it and all those kinds of things. So I'll just walk you quickly around the garden because it's actually looking really good. And I don't know how big this garden is, but it's sort of, when we get to the other side, you'll see how it's a triangle where a street sort of divides. So these are state fair zinnias that are looking so good. And in between there, those are the same heleniums that I have in my garden. Really this end of the garden, well, we've got some verbena bonariensis in here, but we've got a big focus on grasses down here. And this grass that you see here right now, so beautiful, is redhead. I think it's penstemon redhead, something like that. Anyway, the only problem with this grass, it's beautiful, but it does seed around, which is kind of a no-go for me, personally for my garden. But we'll just walk around this side of it, and you can kind of see here, this is the sort of the triangle. So this is the little side road here. And we're over here the other day taking note of some areas that we need to fill things in or something didn't work. and we come down to this end of the garden. And this year we've got some dahlias in here. They are looking really good. In this hole right here is actually where this butterfly bush is going to go. Behind it we have Eupatorium polished brass, the same one that's in my garden. So anyways, we've got Calamintha nepeta, Montrose white down here. There's too much, in my opinion, lamb's ear here. Some beautiful gentian in here, which is this combination with Calamintha. The sun's a little low right now. And then this is the east side of the bed, so it's dark right now because we're in the afternoon here. And there is this tree that's in the middle of this bed, which is huge, is the city's Christmas tree. So this gets lit up at Christmas. Okay, so this guy is gonna go right in this hole right here. Should be perfect actually in this area, I think. So here's the color on this one. I really prefer this almost like magenta pink color. Cran Razz is actually a great name for this one. And you can see it's got a lot of spent flowers on it, which is just fine. I actually think they add some interest to this. And it's also good for when I plant this here. People who come, because a lot of people maintain this garden, sometimes people don't recognize new plants, so they'll know right away what this is. But I'm just really thrilled with how pretty these flowers are. So I don't know if you can see this, but I am going to plant this one up about a ½ an inch above the level of the soil, just because down here, unlike at my house, we're dealing with a fair amount of clay soil here, and butterfly bush really wants, they want really good drainage. So I'm just going to raise that up just a touch. So I just forget everything when I'm filming in like kind of a busy spot like that. But one of the reasons why that butterfly bush is perfect for this garden is because there is huge deer pressure. Now you wouldn't think that when there's cars zipping by like crazy, but we have to have everything deer resistant in that garden, partly because the deer will decimate things quickly, but also because it's very hard for us to have a regular schedule of like deer spraying. So we just really have to rely on deer resistant varieties down there. And a butterfly bush fits that to a T. All right, so that is all 3 of these shrubs that I wanted to feature today in the ground and planted, and they will look beautiful next year. I just know it's gonna be fabulous. And again, you could put these together, you can put them apart. You know, keep in mind that especially when you're starting a new area or thinking about if your garden's not really stacking up to you and something seems off, go looking for some inspiration and then work from there, because I think sometimes if you just get out of your own garden and out of your own head a little bit and go looking for something, and even if you don't follow like a plant recipe to a note, which I've never followed any recipe, including a plant recipe, exactly how it's written, you know, you can usually spark something for you, and swap out something if you feel like there's something in there that you really don't care for. It's all for inspiration and to help guide you on your way. Thank you for watching. Let me know what shrubs you are planting this fall down in the comments. We'll talk to you soon.